Let's get started. So, welcome to the final plenary of the 2025 Global Development Conference. Last but not least, we are going to talk about, well, beyond access, achieving true digital equity and inclusion for all. We're going round, back to full circle to the question of equity. After a very, very interesting session this morning, we'll start. Before we start the panel, we have a video message actually from the director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, Dr. Dima Al-Khatib, and after a message, we will be starting.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to join you virtually today for this important plenary on Beyond Access, Achieving True Digital Equity and Inclusion for All. At the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, our message is clear. Connecting people through digital technologies remains a global goal, but true success goes far beyond access. The digital divide today is still vast and deeply uneven. Almost 2.6 billion people remain offline. Internet use exceeds 90% in high-income countries, but drops to about 25% in low-income ones. And among those online, not everyone participates equally. Globally, 70% of men use the internet compared to 65% of women, leaving more than 240 million women still excluded. The rural-urban gap is also striking. 83% of urban residents are connected, but in rural areas, the figure falls below 50%. And in least developed countries, only 1 in 3 people is online. So we see this is not just about infrastructure, it is about inclusion, affordability, and skills, especially for women, youth, and those in remote communities. Universal connectivity is the only starting line. The real measure of success is when digital transformation expands opportunities, protects rights, and supports a greener, more inclusive future as envisioned in the Pact for the Future and the Global Digital Compact. So let us move beyond simply connecting people towards meaningful inclusion and empowerment. And that means enabling small businesses to reach new markets. That means helping women and young entrepreneurs to earn steady livelihood, and also ensuring that persons with disabilities can participate fully in the digital economy. And this is where South-South and Triangle Cooperation is making a difference. South-South and Triangle Cooperation help countries learn from each other, adapt what works, and scale local solutions that are relevant and sustainable. For example, Kenya's M-Pesa, more than a success story. This is an example of how mobile payment solutions, from agent networks to consumer protection, have traveled across the global south and have been reshaped to meet local needs. This is what beyond access truly means, not just connectivity, but income security, business growth, and resilience. Digital inclusion also depends on building skills at scale. Digital literacy must reach people where they are, in community centers, women-led spaces, schools, and libraries, and link directly to real benefits like jobs, payments, and essential services. And digital transformation must go hand in hand with the green transition. Across Asia and Africa, countries are already using satellite and AI tools to monitor soil, manage water, and strengthen early warning systems for farmers, often through South-South initiatives. These efforts improve yields, reduce wastes, and build resilience to climate shocks. Artificial intelligence holds also immense promise, but only if guided by fair rules and shared values. And through South-South cooperation, countries in Latin America like Brazil, Mexico, and Uruguay are working together on data protection and AI ethics, ensuring that new technologies serve their people. Through South-South solidarity, we can also pool knowledge, build regional data centers, and choose open, fair systems that put inclusion first. That is the spirit of the Global Digital Compact: shared values, shared benefits, and shared responsibility. On a final note, let us also commit to measure success not only by cables and towers, but also by what people can actually do online, earn a living, learn, access services safely, and participate fully. South-South and Triangle Cooperation is the connective framework that accelerates this process, helping countries move faster, avoid costly mistakes, and scale what works. I invite you all to share your experiences and forge new partnerships. You are also all welcome to explore UNOSSC's South-South Galaxy, our digital knowledge and brokerage platform, where you will find hundreds of real-world examples of inclusive digital transformation. Together, let us move beyond access towards a future where digital innovation is inclusive, equitable, and truly shared. Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for this final plenary. It's nice to see the room is actually quite full for day 3, last plenary. Actually, this is a sign that people are enjoying the proceedings. My name is Francesco Obino, and beyond the occasional emceeing and the occasional translation job, those who were at the film screening last night see what I'm talking about. I lead the team at the Global Development Network that designs and implements our research and research capacity building programs. Across the globe, of course. I really invite you to take advantage of these last few lunch breaks and coffee breaks to meet all our staff. We are about 30 people, usually scattered across 10 different countries, and we all meet together only a couple of times a year, and this is one of those. So please also interact with them and discover more about GDN and our programs. Now, in my job, well, my job makes me particularly interested in capacity, in a reflection on capacity, and specifically, of course, given the mandate of GDN, in research capacity as a gear in the larger thing we call development. I've really enjoyed, during these last 2.5 days, the many efforts that many speakers have made to rephrase the meaning and definition of digital transformation as change management. I think this keeps coming up, right? We're not talking about solutions, we're talking about change management. We're not talking adopting specific solutions as a quick fix, but we're really talking about how to push change forward. And actually in recent conversations, I realized even colleagues at the World Bank are starting thinking about digital public infrastructure and digital transformation as change management. So clearly it's becoming a very, very large awareness. Now, as we look at digital transformation as a process, as opposed to a set of solutions, what we do is basically opening up spaces for debating capacity and capacity to move from digital transformations to inclusive digital transformations. In a way, what this panel is all about is to go beyond access. So I imagine a kind of a sliding bar where on one end you have technology and the development of technology. Then you have adoption, which we've learned through these 2.5 days, is much more about adaptation than it's just about simple adoption. Access, right, to those technologies that were adopted or adapted. Inclusion. And ultimately, though, and this is something where I'll ask our speakers to comment on, well, at the end of this slide, we should have justice, I guess, fairness, freedom, as was mentioned in the previous panel. So if this is a sliding bar, the question is, how do we move from one to the other, right? Because we basically recognizing that digital transformation is a process means that this is not automatic, right? Sliding from technology and innovation to a more fair and more just world and more freedom, actually, for everyone. We have an incredibly diverse panel, yeah? And I think I've been talking a lot to people at the conference, and this is one of the aspects that everybody seems to be enjoying a lot, right? So we have on this panel 4 speakers, but also multiple continents and a completely different kind of institutional, professional settings. So this, I'm asking you a big task, to explain how we go from technology to a more just and fair world. But really, we don't want to find just solutions. We want to hear your experiences at some of these intervals between the steps in your own institutional settings. Now, I will ask our panel to talk in a few rounds. The first rounds, I propose to talk rather quickly, to introduce yourself in 2-3 minutes, but also would like to talk. I'd like to ask you to go back to the basics, right? So when you think of equity, and this panel is about digital equity, what comes to mind? And I'm not looking at definitions of equity, but what are the images, the faces, the levels of work, the spaces that come to mind when you think about equity? So can I start with you, Helga, and then pass on to...
Uno, dos. It is on. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Helga, the director of the Social Studies Department of the Salvadoran Association of Social and Economic Development. Our short name is FUSADES. And we work on the topics of sustainability and inclusion, and mainly related to education and health promotion. Our cross-cutting topics are digital transformation and sustainability risks. So coming back to your question about what images I think about when referring to equity, I can tell you 3 images, very concrete, that are related to my work. The first one has to do with the condition of education in El Salvador, where it is a fact that all students, about 1.2 million of students in the public schools, have tablets and laptops because of the One Boy, One Girl, One Computer program that was launched 3 years ago. But it's also true that about 70% of schools do not have internet and speed connectivity, the ones that have. And also teachers are not really prepared to use the technology in the classroom for learning. So when this comes to my mind, I see equity in the faces of policymakers, project implementers, researchers like me, and teachers finding innovative solutions to overcome these challenges. And I know a couple of teachers and school principals that do it on territory, finding really very simple ways to make it happen. For example, in one school, I know the teachers have been able to train parents in how to guide their children in the use of technology at home for learning. And that's because the kids can take the tablets and the laptops to their homes. This is something very simple, but when you see that type of initiatives and very proactive, then that's something happening related to equity. I can recall also a FUSADES program that is called Digital Women, and they teach women entrepreneur how to use digital platforms to do marketing and improve their sales and be connected with the clients. I talked to some of these women, and I can see in their faces how happy they are that now they can have more sellings. They feel very confident about using smartphones that they didn't have before, and they can help better their children and their families. Just because their job is improving the sales, they can hire other people. And thirdly, I can recall conversations with a school principal who is checking once a week whether the students have connectivity at home. They had these rounds of check-ins, and they have found out 80% of the students have connectivity at home, but 20% don't. And they have found different ways to connect these parents and the children to the school by giving study guides and other materials, and having a teacher visiting the houses to help them do their homework when it's needed. So in fact, when we talk about equity and I present you these images, I think it's very easy for me to say that equity might be a concept, but it only becomes real when it is found in concrete actions and in the faces of people.
Thank you, Helga. And just to reassure you, my kids in Italy in 2025 also have an amazing, a screen in the classroom. But to use the screen, the teacher has to connect via hotspot because there's no internet in the school. So I think some of his challenges are really quite universal. Still, Emin, you want to come next?
Does it work? Yeah. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you, all of you, especially GDN team and your volunteers here who organized such a great event. As it is the last session, I wanted to use this opportunity to thank you all. I am Emin Mustafayev from Azerbaijan. I am the head of Foreign Economic Relations Department in the Economic Scientific Research Institute under Minister of Economy. Actually, we are in between researchers and bureaucrats. Therefore, I can share my experience in both of the ways. Okay, when we talk about digital equity and inclusion, I want to tell you what comes to my mind. Actually, it is more than a technology. It is about people, trust, and opportunity for me. Actually, like I am thinking in that way as a philosopher, Francis Bacon. He tells that science is only important when it is useful for the people. Actually, as technology is also related to science, therefore I also think that it should be beneficial for the people, and we should put the people in the center of our aim. Because at the end of the day, technology means nothing if it doesn't make people's lives easier, fairer, and more connected to the future. Actually, over the past decade, many countries, including mine, have made major progress in expanding internet access and digital infrastructure. Actually, in our country, it is not a very big deal. Like we have like internet connection everywhere. Our people can use gadgets and other things which is needed for digitalization. But we have also learned that access alone is not enough. Connectivity is only the first step. What really matters is digital capability, people's ability to use technology in meaningful ways. Actually, I would like to share our experience as a country. When we talk about digital equity, one of the most practical examples I like to share from Azerbaijan is something called Asan service.
Can I ask you to keep that for the next round?
Okay.
Would it be okay? I mean, yeah. So thanks a lot. So we had Helga, who's giving us a picture of like students and teachers and principals and women, of course. And I mean, you're obviously working in a ministry. You're just seeing the whole population, right? So you really visualize the whole population. Michael, what about you? Can you introduce yourself and tell us what comes to mind when we talk about equity?
Thank you very much. So good morning. My name is Michael Onyango. I am the founder of the Forgotten Bottomillions, and I'm going to define equity with respect to the Forgotten Bottomillions in Kenya. So just building on what has been said before and being in context of what is happening with the different people in the room, we just heard from the introductory video that 2.9 billion people actually do not have access to connectivity and to devices. And I'm going to tell you what we have tried to do in Kenya to provide equity across board. So you possibly heard us speak about M-Pesa, and M-Pesa is mobile money. So because a lot of transactions in Kenya are done over the phones, we actually have a density of about 97% of the people in Kenya actually have phones. So based on that, what we have done as the Forgotten Bottomillions is that we have ensured that over these phones that people already have. Sorry, another interesting fact is that 97% of Kenyans are actually connected on WhatsApp. So on the WhatsApp platform, what we do is we provide equity in the form of ensuring that any socio-economic opportunity that helps drive and changes anybody's lives, whether you're a youth, whether you're a woman, or no matter what demographic you are, we have a platform whereby you can get fully verified resources that makes the world a bit more fairer with respect to what you may need and what you may find. I will be going on in the next round to say a bit more in detail exactly what we do or how we do that, but in a nutshell, literally anything you can think about as you sit in this room, and whether it's a job, whether it's a fully funded scholarship, whether it is a work opportunity, whether it is e-magazines or e-books, we have successfully managed to do this after 9 years. So essentially, we've ensured that there is equity across in Kenya using what we already have, which is mobile phones and WhatsApp, and across board. And all this is done at no cost to our users. Let me pause there and go back to the moderator.
It was a good teaser. We need to know more about what you do. Can I turn to our panelist online, Njideka? Would you like to come in next? Introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit what comes to mind when you think about equity.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's been great listening to the other esteemed panelists as well through the conference. So I apologize I can't join you in person, but good morning. I am actually dialing in from Washington, D.C. this morning. So it's not even 7 a.m. here just yet, but my name is Njideka Harry, and I'm the founder of a global citizen sector organization that works at the intersection of education and technology called Youth for Technology Foundation, an organization I started about 2 decades ago, and play a role as founder of the organization. In addition to that, I also serve as global vice president and on the leadership team of an organization that leads in social innovation and has the largest network of social entrepreneurs worldwide. And that organization is Ashoka. Some of you may be familiar with Ashoka's work across 92 different countries, impacting the lives of billions of people. So that is my introduction. Just to step back a little bit, I was born in a small country of about 270 million people. And when I say a small country, I'm actually referring to Nigeria, a country in West Africa. And I was born to a Nigerian father and to an American mother. And when I was 18, I was able to move to the United States in pursuit of a college education, a really big dream that I had growing up in Nigeria as a young girl. And when I started university in the United States, my aha moment was not necessarily the social or even the economic inflections and differences on a university campus, but indeed, it was technology and its influence in the classroom. Now, think about this. This was in the early 90s. And think about the transformation of technology since then, the fast pace, the introduction of emerging technologies, etc., and how the landscape has expanded since that time. After I graduated from university, I found myself in corporate America. Ended up at a company called Microsoft in Redmond, Washington. And it was at Microsoft that my obsession for bridging the digital canyon was born. Because I thought to myself, I'm sitting in the world's, top software company, coming from a country where many, many people cannot access basic internet, cannot access or have basic digital literacy skills. And so I was really obsessed with this idea to bridge the digital canyon. And I call it an obsession because I felt like nothing else mattered at that time. And it was my role, irrespective of how many individuals I was able to reach, it was my role to bridge that canyon. Now, if you think about, I was coming from an urban community. My parents were educators, and I was still left behind as far as equity is concerned in a developed world classroom. How much less young people growing up in peri-urban and or rural communities in developing world economies. They can never catch up. They can't catch up because of access, lack of access, or lack of affordability. And so this is where equity plays a role. When I started Youth for Technology Foundation in the early 2000s, only large development agencies were working at the intersection of technology and education in countries like Nigeria, in countries like Kenya. And when I came forth saying, hey, not only do we want to bridge this digital divide, but we want to put young people as the center of this development. We want to put them in the driver's seat of this development. We want to give them their power and their agency back in bridging the digital divide. This was a new paradigm, right? And so we were able to really kind of shift that thinking to the role that young people play, not just as consumers of technology, but really as innovators of technology. And with that, we're bridging the digital divide, ensuring that equity is not a faraway dream, but one that we can all reach if we're given our agency and our power back.
Thank you very much, Njideka, and thanks for already mentioning this question of catching up as not, be unrealistic, because I hope we'll discuss about whether the point is actually really catching up or something else. So we have a think tank from El Salvador. We have a ministry from Azerbaijan. We have a foundation. NGO, yeah, from Kenya. And of course, we have a global kind of foundation as well online with Njideka, who's herself from Nigeria. Now, I think it would be very interesting to know more about your work on digital equity within your own institutional context. What's your agenda, right? What are you trying to push forward? So should we go in reverse order? Njideka, you want to keep going for 5 minutes about the work you're trying to do? What is it that you're trying to really push forward?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the core of my work really it's really about ensuring that technology expands human potential, right? And not human divides. And we've seen with the advent of technology, even over the last 10, 15 years, the influx of emerging technologies and now artificial intelligence, it is very possible that these digital inequities are exacerbating as a result of the influx. So my role really revolves around moving beyond access to agency, right? It's not just about getting devices into hands. It's really about ensuring that people have the power to use technology to shape their futures. The World Economic Forum about 1.5 years ago came up with this framework called the Education 4.0 framework. And within this framework, it emphasizes things like, like creativity, collaboration, empathy, and global citizenship as foundational to digital readiness. So at Youth for Technology Foundation, we design programs where young people, we work in Nigeria, we work in Kenya, we do a little bit of work in the US as well, but young people learn technical skills and human skills, right? Problem solving, they learn, grit and of course, compassion at the center, because inclusion that ignores humanity isn't inclusion at all. So my work really is around the equity and inclusion, what I would call the equity and inclusion agenda. So over the years, right, we've been doing this work for 20 years at Youth for Technology Foundation, and some of the levels of change that I personally have really come to value in communication with our multi-stakeholder partners. There are 3 levers. The first is that, policy that is co-created, not prescribed, right? And so what I mean by that is when governments invite educators, young people, and community voices to design digital strategies together. There's buy-in. And so the policies become more relevant, they become more inclusive, and they're trusted more. And then secondly, ecosystem leadership that blends purpose with profit. On the leadership team at Ashoka, the world's social encyclopedia for innovation, I work with several business leaders that are looking at ways to transform and blend purpose with profit. And we know that companies that integrate inclusion into their innovation pipelines extend impact beyond philanthropy. So these types of companies really are very, very helpful in kind of advancing and moving systems change as far as the private sector in digital equity, right? We're looking for more than just CSR. We're looking for social innovators, social entrepreneurs that are working at the intersection of education and technology to be a part of the innovation channel of these companies. That way, it's not just about a big check going to an organization and a shiny page in an annual report, but it's really about how are these companies really taking innovation, especially those innovators working in technology, and bringing them into the private sector, into innovation with the companies. This really drives sustainability. And then finally, the lever is around community agency, right? I believe that real transformation happens when local innovators see themselves as part of the solution. So whether it's teachers in the local primary school, whether it's small business owners, women in the marketplace, whether it's young people transitioning between secondary school and the university, technology is not something that happens to them. Technology is something that they are a part of, right? And they are helping to innovate. They are helping to co-create, and we're giving them their agency back. So these are the levers that I see that can help bridge some of the inequities, especially in the technology space in low income and middle income economies and developing countries.
Thank you very much. And yes, I should have mentioned I asked everyone to think of levels of change they bumped into, yeah, or tested in your respective work. But I also kind of ask everyone to think about anything counterintuitive that happened, no? Because usually we have this idea, this very simplistic idea of capacity, that, you know, the empty jar or the empty vase kind of theory of capacity, where some people are full, some people are empty, and we just need to transfer from one to the other. Anything counterintuitive or surprising in this 20 years of fascinating experiments that you've been carrying out?
In terms of surprises, I would say that, you know, I think it's important, of course, to start with the community, right? So, and by starting with the community, we're ensuring that we are really keeping human dignity at the center of our digital transformation efforts, right? The technology will not divide us necessarily. It will deepen our shared humanity. And so when I talk about giving people agency and giving people their power back, you know, 2 decades ago, that was a bit foreign, especially when it was young people, right? When we're saying give young people their power back, put them in the front seats of their own economic and technological development, and let them drive things forward. That was somewhat foreign, right? But now, fast track 2 decades, we see that it is understandable, especially with the advent of emerging technologies where local content is becoming more important. The translation of languages is key in things like LLMs and artificial intelligence. And so more and more people have come around to understand that these communities that we serve really need to be at the center. They are co-creators in this development and in this agency. And so it's important to include them from day one.
Thank you. And I think, yes, it is in part not part of the mainstream thinking that youth can be in charge of digital policies or digital strategies. So I think that's something to note. Michael, back to you. Can you tell us a bit more about your work and the agenda you're pushing?
Thank you. So everyone in this room can relate to how WhatsApp group works. And we're speaking about equity. And for me, it's always very important that how do we get people to use what's in their hands as opposed to what's yet to come or what's being developed or what's in the pipeline. So I'll tell you what we do within the Forgotten Bottomillions. So what we do is very, very simple. We reach about 500,000 people every single week via WhatsApp. And what we do is we have a central group of WhatsApp admins who are about 300 people. And all of us curate and all of us ensure that whatever is being shared out to the wider groups is actually fully verified information. No scams, nothing that asks for money, because we're about equity. We're about everybody getting a fair chance as whatever it is that we distribute. So any post that you'd ever get from us or that comes with our logo on it, it's a fully verified post. And I'm proud to say that we have students studying all around the world, in Germany, in Thailand, in the US, all from fully funded scholarships that they've gotten through us. And I don't even know most of them, because we're not trying to do this so we can get some brownie points. We're doing this because there is an actual need in place for this to happen. And then again, I'd spoken about the fact that we're a very eclectic group. So literally, you'll find that anything and everything that you're looking for, hypothetically, you may be a mother who's probably your interest is in aeronautical engineering. Yes, and I say that, without apology. So every single week, we actually share e-magazines, which are also free. They're PDFs. And I must give credit to Adam Schwartz, who unfortunately committed suicide in 2013 for his fight for us to be able to have access to free published information. He's also the founder of Reddit, for those of you who know who Reddit is. So for us and for me, as somebody who has worked in government from before, I was a county minister for information and technology in Kisumu County. So I do understand some of the the whole amount of red tapes and everything that goes on. When AI first came, it became a big hit around the world. This is in 2019. Kenya as a country, the government put forward a task force to look at AI and distributed ledgers. I was the vice chair of that particular task force. So all the nitty-gritty things, I do have a good understanding of it, but our people are not interested in that. What our people want, especially those from the global south, is how do I put money in my pocket today? The other things, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the big, we can quote all the lovely acronyms. We can talk about LLMs. We can talk about regenerative AI and all that. So what? Who cares? So what we've done is that we've actually found a way of connecting with Kenyans across board via WhatsApp. And it also means that even when they're not online, when they come back online, they're still able to get whatever information we shared across and they can use it.
Thank you. I think you're basically sharing information, yeah?
Yes.
Fixing what economists would call information asymmetry, right?
And
sharing failure.
And I think it's important to say that sharing fully verified information, because there's a lot of misinformation. So let me make that very, very clear. Whatever information we share is verified. And every single job that we share, nobody asks you for a penny. And, oh, sorry, by the way, we've also got remote jobs that we share over our platform. And you may ask, so how do we ensure that these remote jobs that we share are actually not scams and everything? So we have subscribed to remote job sites. So whatever we post on our sites are actually jobs that Kenyans are qualified for. We just do not try to fill up space for the sake of filling up space and so that people can think that we've just got all these opportunities there. No, we're very intentional and very intent about what we do, how we do it. And I think we have done it well. And my hope is that the people in this room who come from other geographies in the global south may also go back and use what you already have in your hands, as opposed to chasing after the next big thing that is coming out there.
I think it's important, like how you jump from access to inclusion is from the curation of that information, the quality control of that information that reduces risk. Basically, you are making sure that your users face less risks than they would without you. So thank you for that. Emin, why don't you go back to Azerbaijan and what you do at the ministry?
Okay, now I will talk one of the practical examples from Azerbaijan, which is called Asan service. Asan means in Azerbaijan language easy. It is a centralized electronic public services in Azerbaijan. I will explain you in a simple way. It is very similar to McDonald's, but you don't get food there. You just get public services. You go inside. There are 400 services you can use. It is including getting passports, registering your taxes, or anything related to governmental issues. But you have two choices there. One of them is like you can use these services by your own. For example, you are a young man, it is very easy for you. You just go to one of the monitors and you use everything you want and you do everything online. But as an old man or who has very low digital skills, it can be very hard for you. Therefore, there are a lot of staff from different ministries or governmental organizations. They can help you for getting the services. It is like a hybrid system there. And one of the great things about Asan service is that there is, how to tell, mobile Asan services. It means there are buses because Azerbaijan is not a very big country, but still there are many regions which are not very connected to the city centers. These buses go to a far region and they just stay there for a month. And for example, you are from a remote region and you want to use these services. Actually, you don't need to go to the city centers. They just come to you. And as a villager or as a rural people, you can use these services from the bus. And in the bus, there are also staff. They can help you. They have everything. They have computers there. They have like internet, everything in the bus. And I think it's a very good example that like people maybe shouldn't go to the public services. Public services should come to people. And it is, I think, a great example. I think there are experiences in some countries, but I think it is still unique. And I would tell you what makes Asan really unique. It is focused on human experience. The technology behind it is advanced, yes, but it is designed to feel simple. The offices are bright, customer-oriented, and built around respect. It is the opposite of a typical bureaucratic environment. For example, before Asan services, if you wanted to get a passport, actually you needed to go to the passport offices at least 2 days for just giving your documents there, because there was a huge line there and actually you needed to wait. But in Asan services, there's a statistics. A service it means all services approximately takes just 17 minutes of your time. And that's it. And also there is online Asan service. You can just sit at your home and you can do all of the services online. And I can tell you, it is just mixture of everything. And it is really easy for the people to understand everything. And our government didn't shut down these bureaucratic offices which were alternatives to Asan service. They just gave you choices. You had two options. You could just go to these bureaucratic organizations to get these services. Actually, no one wanted this because it takes your too much time. You are being angry because there were bribery there as well. But in Ashoka services, it is very transparent, and actually, staff there is very respectful to you, because they should be, because they have also their own rating system. For example, if you are leaving the services, there are volunteers who ask you, like, did you like the services? You tell yes or not. If not, what was the problem? And if your services is not in very high ranking, it means there's a problem, and your ministry should take care of it. That's it about our country's experience.
Thanks a lot. I mean, am I correct to kind of interpret what you're saying in terms of access? I mean, access needs to be universal almost. Yeah. So basically, you're talking about how the state actually takes on itself to remove all the barriers. So access is not just about having a connection and a device, but it's also about not having to go through, difficult processes based on your conditions, having to go through negotiations, which are informal kind of strategies to access, etc. I think this is a very interesting take on the question. So thank you, Emin. Yes, quickly, a quick comeback.
Sorry, just on what he said. So it's interesting. So in Kenya, we also have something called the e-citizen service, and 22,000 services from the government. You can actually get them from your phone, so you don't have to walk into any government office. You can actually do that all online on your phone. So one of the things that we have done is, because of M-Pesa and because everybody kind of like knows how to use their phone, so 22,000 of our government services, 24 hours, you can actually do it on your phone. Just wanted to input that.
Now, Helga, your turn. You lead a research team in an independent think tank in El Salvador. Yeah. What are you trying to push forward on the digital equity agenda?
Well, we have found 3 different problems that are connected. The first one is digital literacy is the first thing. The second one is employability. And the third one is having the governance, the governance and the proactive people working on it in the territory, making things really happening. I said before that equity is a very complex context, but it can only be found in the faces of people, in concrete actions. So what we see at FUSADES is that there is this need of kind of working on these 3 things, but the government is basically trying to catching up, because it's the first thing you have to do, to have the connectivity, the digital infrastructure ready. They are investing in fiber optics. They have given computers and tablets to all children at public schools, but they are behind in teacher preparedness, digital literacy, and making everyone really use the tools for productivity and learning. But then who else can be worried about it? Institutions like mine, FUSADES. As a think tank, we are concerned about how people can participate in digital society and keeping global citizenship, and also working from the perspective of ethics, assuring that everyone has the means to have a quality of life, and also making sure that everyone at least can complete high school and have the opportunity to enter the university, some things that we don't have. Because of that, and working about a digital education model, we are thinking about agency. How can we really empower people, or help to empower people to really work in this digital society, but also have their means being resolved? And we found 3 levels of change based on our observations, research, and actually action programs that we have. And the first one is related to empowering educators for equitable digital learning. That means that teachers and principals, they might have the computers at the school, they might get connectivity because the government is really working on that. But if they don't know how to use it properly to teach and to make students to learn on their own, with cybersecurity in place, that's not going to work. So we have to empower them to be able to do it, but it's going to take time, and they have to work in the territory doing small actions and working proactively. So leadership is the first thing that they have to really need to make things happen gradually, because it's not going to happen at once. It takes time. So they have to really solve complex problems in the classroom every day, but they need to do it. They need to have leadership. So that's the first thing. And as an example, I told you about this school principal that till this year, he's going to have full connectivity in the school to be able to make sure that the 100 population of students have the connection. But there is another concern in El Salvador. This is for youth. We need children and youth to be able to get formal education and digital literacy through schools. But not everyone has that opportunity. And El Salvador is aging very quickly. In 15 years, the majority of population is going to be over 45 years old. And they need to be trained in digital literacy. Like in your country, in Kenya, 97% has digital smartphones. Everyone uses it. Everyone has WhatsApp. But that doesn't mean they use it wisely. They might use it to see content and pass the images on the phone, but not necessarily for working and for making their life easy. So we need to work on that. And at FUSADES, we are working with two types of populations, like community impoverished poor communities and entrepreneurs and small businesses. And we are trying to teach them how to use the technology, how to use smartphones wisely, how to use them to find jobs, to create opportunities, to learn, and also to increase their sales if they are entrepreneurs. We have two different programs. One of them teaches even cybersecurity so that people can protect their own data in the communities because they have the phones, but they post anything. They don't really care about what they download and basic things like that they are learning to do in these training programs. And we have another program that is teaching digital uses in marketing and business management for entrepreneurs. We have special programs for women, but we also have another program for youth entrepreneurs and anyone that can learn. We have also collaborating with 7 universities implementing a program called Strengthening Businesses, that it has a particular module on digital marketing and use of smartphones for selling. And by doing that, we are also helping people to learn and create agency, empowering them to use technology to improve their lives. And one thing about that is that we have to make sure that technology is community-centered, that really empowers the local groups to ensure inclusion. And the last level of change that I can mention has to do with the role of private sector, because the education system by itself, the Ministry of Education by itself, the government by itself would not be able to do it quickly as it is being needed. And others have to come to play and help. And for that, and we are supporting institutions that are working on that. For example, we are currently creating an academy it's for professional training on digital skills for youth from very poor communities. And we are working with another foundation that is doing that. We also are working with an AI academy that we have at FUSADES to be able to train people in the use responsible of AI. And also we promote programs like, there is a program called STEAM Academy that is for children and youth from 7 to 18 years old, that is led by another organization, that it teaches digital literacy to kids and robotics. And it has a special also program for girls. And these are girls and children from very, very poor communities. And they also work with teachers from public schools. So because we have players like this, and there are other institutions that do this kind of things, I think we can really help not only to catch up quickly, but also to create agency in local communities, business entrepreneurs, and children and youth that really need to enter in this digital society quickly and understand the advantages, but also the challenges that it has.
Thank you, Helga. Okay, so we've been talking almost for about an hour, so we'll open very quickly to the audience. But just to sum up, I mean, going around the panel and talking about levers of change, I think we're starting identifying some levers of change that can help us move, some things to keep in mind as we want to move from just access to inclusion. And then hopefully we have time to talk how to move beyond inclusion. And yes, so I think we heard a lot about agency and voice, right? So I interpret what and Njideka mentioned also about kind of needing voice, not just having a device, how do you use that? And voice also at the individual level, but also at the community level, right? We talked about the problem of quality control of information, right? So the curation, this fundamental kind of function of how to curate the information that one accesses. We talked about universal access and the role of the state in guaranteeing that. Yeah, and I think Helga, if I can interpret what you said, basically also calling for integrating digital literacy as part of basic literacy in the education system, and also, yeah, of course, yeah, across, also as part of citizenship, right? So digital literacy as a building block of meaningful participation in public, economic, and social life. Now there are a number of questions online. Some are very specific. Yeah, some I think we already have been answering, particularly the one on integration into educational curricula. I think the idea of investing in the leadership of teachers over the long term, I think, is an excellent answer to that. There's questions which are very specific about Samoa, how to do this in Samoa, right? I think we should take that conversation maybe to lunch. I don't know if anyone on the panel feels knowledgeable enough about Samoa to provide recommendations. There's obviously questions about how do we measure, how do we define meaningful use, right? And I think this is a leitmotif in all the answers, right? Meaningful use is about agency, it's about enabling, right? So it's something that is perceived at the individual level. And there are also questions about how do we deal with all of this in conflict areas, right? So Gaza, now there's a couple of questions about Gaza. Everybody has in mind what's happening in Gaza. So do you just put everything on hold, and wait for things to get better? Because kids are growing up anyways in the meanwhile. So how to deal with that? So there's a lot of questions. I'm just putting them out there if anybody wants to pick on these, but I'd like to open to the audience to see whether there are questions for the panel. Yes, there's one question there and one up here on the right, both from India. So I encourage other countries to also be represented, please. Okay, so yes, please. Can you please introduce yourself and be as brief as possible?
Yeah.
Question rather than comments. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm Pradeep. I teach in Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. That is a public university in Delhi. This is on equity. We recently did an experimental study on whether you will be taking mobile into the classroom or not taking mobile into the classroom with 20,000 students. They are all college-going students. And we found that students who are not carrying mobile into the classroom, they are doing much better in their learning, also in mental well-being, their engagement in the classroom and all that. We found very positive relationship between not taking into the classroom and the gain that they are getting. And very surprisingly, I won't say it is surprisingly, but we were also expecting partially that the students who are from marginalized groups, let's say from lower caste, female, they are actually getting the most advantages out of this, of not taking mobiles into the classroom. Okay. So there it is actually bringing more equity to them when they are not carrying. So they are not being distracted. So how are you going to see this? Because why I am raising this question, when you are talking these equity concerns and connecting that with the digital devices, so there are many things that is actually working. You may give them the digital devices, but there are generational inequalities in use of digital devices that is actually putting them at the disadvantageous position to gain something out of that. So homogenizing the benefits actually is problematic for me as a researcher, and that is the evidence that I found. Thank you.
I guess there's a difference between technology as necessary and technology as sufficient condition for agency, right? So I think that's of course that's very different. But I'd love to hear what the panelists to say about that. There's another question here, and then we'll go up there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ashoka from Nigeria. I'm very much elated listening to the panelists, but I have some concern as the use of technology in education. I'm also from Nigeria and from a state, Enugu State, that is trying to introduce smart school. And they are trying to drive the use of smart technology in primary schools and secondary schools. But the questions that they are yet to answer is actually, with the surge in our population, how then do we define the ratio of technology per student? We have a situation where we have like 100 students having just one laptop for demonstration. Is it also part of their digital inclusion? That's one. Secondly,
I can answer that one. No.
Just
I can answer that question. It's no.
No, just a follow-up. As we are talking, one factor that is yet to be explored is barrier, that's energy. In Africa, we have energy problem. And the use of digital cannot survive without energy sufficiency. So what are we thinking? How are we thinking in that direction, especially providing alternative to ensure that this inclusion is actually includable? Thank you.
Thank you. So can we take the first question up?
Before I begin, Francesco, you said that both of us are from India. I'll add one more thing. We are both
Same institute.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah. So anyway,
JNU rules.
yeah. Fortunately, the question is different though, although the institution is same. So, while we agree, all of us agree that access is not the end point, it's the beginning. And also giving access doesn't mean that things are more equitable. We have a long way to go. But while we look at the digital space, I want to just for a brief moment, want to take you back to the analog stage. And we have seen that the social reproduction of inequality has moved from in analog space as well. For example, if you have good schools, good public schools, then students will go, the elite section will go to better public school and better private schools and the English medium schools and international schools, while always the section who needs are marginalized, always trying to catch up. So they reach one level, the other level has already moved one level up. And the same thing is kind of happening in digital space as well. The same social reproduction of inequality is happening in digital space. And the trend, at least in India, is that now that students have access to digital schooling and teachers and so on, the elite section has now moved to analog in-person classrooms, elite in-person classrooms with very sophisticated digital techniques and teachers, in-person care and so on. So how can you really arrest or stop this social reproduction, or are we in a game of catching up always?
Yeah,
that's I want to hear from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that move back is not a hipster fashion, but it's actually valuing one-on-one kind of qualitative feedback from a human being becoming very expensive, actually, right? As everything moves online. So who would like to take some of this question? Of course, Njideka online, please come in whenever you want. Helga, yeah, and then Michael.
Yeah, because most of your questions have to do with education. I feel like I should start. and the truth is that technology is a helper. It can help extend the capacities of people, but it's not the solution for everything. And coming back to education, that's why it's so important to have teacher preparedness. But not only to use the technology, is to really understand the educational needs of every student and being able to put them in context and create the right pedagogy to make them learn on their own, to create autonomy in their own learning, that they have metacognition and know how they learn themselves. So that's the first thing, because that's why the first thing is empowering teachers to be able to understand their students, their needs, and then use whatever is available to help them to learn. That's the first thing. So it's not technology the solution. It's just one tool. That's the first thing. Second, there are some studies in El Salvador that suggest that only online classes are not enough to encourage learning. And sometimes only physical presence in the aula also is not enough. And I had that discussion 2 weeks ago or 3 with some teachers about this fact. And it depends on the context. There are some contexts, like in a peri-urban area, but poverty, in a poverty location, that they say, well, now the school has connectivity, teachers know how to use the technology, students like it, and it really helps to attract more students to the classroom. But the truth is that not all students learn the same with the technology. Some of them need another type of strategies. That's one thing. And the other one is not all of them have connectivity at home, and they can be in disadvantage to do a school homework, for example, or to study from home. So they have to design different ways. And then the school principal said to me, I'm working with my team of teachers to understand the students, the population of students that we have, and create specific strategies to help them to learn. Now they have the technology, but we want them to learn. So, but they need to work with the teachers. So you see, technology is only a tool. In the cases where there is no electricity, they have to use other strategies. And the most important is that you develop the basic competencies, like the foundational skills, even for using the technology. If you don't have the foundational skills, reading and writing, reading comprehension, logical thinking, critical thinking, this is going to be useless in the future. So foundational skills are first. It's like building the blocks, and technology is only one tool. That's what I would say regarding that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I think just to add to that, because there was a question about the ratio of devices to students. I mean, let's not forget the ratio of teachers to students, right? You can give everybody a device, but if the ratio of teachers to students is still 1 to 100, then what can you expect, right? Maybe Facebook.
Yeah, and I can add something else that I forgot. In the case of local communities, when you are teaching to poverty communities or entrepreneurs, the thing is that it's not bringing them the technology and teach them by the book. It's just asking them, what do you need it for? And then tailor specific programs to their needs so that they can use it wisely.
Michael?
Yes.
So thank you very much. And I'm going to answer the gentleman from Nigeria because I feel and understand you. So first and foremost, believe it or not, you're actually very fortunate and very lucky that you don't have power. Yes, and I say that unapologetically, and you may wonder why. Because your students actually get a proper education because they have a physical teacher standing there and connecting with them. Devices are just enablers. I will remind you what I said about what 4BM does. Our aim is to get money into people's pockets. I didn't say we use it as a tool for education. It's to help you get resources to improve what you're doing in your classroom. It is not the platform to come and learn. And then I'll tell you something also. It's very interesting. All the top, and I challenge you all to do this, go back and all the top 10 tech companies in the world owned by, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's whether it belongs to Jeff Bezos, whether it belongs to, whether it's the CEO of Apple, go to all of them and go and Google them or chat GPT them. Guess what? All of them restrict how much access their own children have to devices. That should tell you a lot. So don't just do things because it's fashionable. Don't try and catch up Don't try to think that you're playing catch up when you're actually being the one who's being, you're actually the food on the table. So be very careful about some of the things that you want to bring, you want to introduce, and you're actually asking for. You actually do not need them. I am fascinated. About a month ago, before I was in my home village, and I'd gone to the school, and the teachers were saying that they want to have connection to internet, and I should help them have access to internet connectivity and everything else. And I said, no, I won't do that for you. But what I will do is that I'll actually buy you some sports equipment so that the children can have more time in the field. They can get to be more sociable. They can get to learn the most important skills at that age, which they will never learn on a digital device. So digital devices are just but a conduit. They're not the it and all. So make sure that you leave here knowing that very clearly. Thank you.
Spoiler alert, you just stole my last question.
Can I just make a point on that, if possible?
Anything to add? Yeah, Njideka,
I'm
please.
sorry. I know, and I hear Michael's point loud and clear. But we can have a whole book written on this, right? How much access is enough, right? And so totally agree that at the core of human-centered learning is the soft skills, the empathy, the teamwork, the leadership, the ability to relate, and technology is just the enabler. But even if technology is just the enabler, if access to jobs, if access to better education is possible because of the bridge that technology brings, then I think it would be a disservice to our society to be negligent, that irrespective of whether or not we have access, and irrespective of whether or not 2.6 billion people still are not online, that online access provides additional opportunities, okay? And we can have a total conversation about that over lunch, but and I'm just being hypothetical because of course I'm virtual, so we can touch base on that later on. But let me just give a quick example in the interest of time. In the US, I have twin daughters. They are 17 years old. They are seniors in high school. They just introduced Yonder pouches into the classroom, not just for middle school and elementary school teachers or students, but also for high school students. So senior secondary school in Nigeria and Kenya, for instance. Now, Yonder pouches, the students are expected to put their phones in the pouches at the beginning of the day, and those phones are expected to remain there, okay? Now, let me compare that to shortly after COVID. I remember talking to one of the teachers in the schools that we work with in Kenya. And his comment to me was, prior to COVID, we asked our students to leave their phones at home. Now, school is on the phones. So they have to learn, right, using those devices, right? So we see two different kind of opposites to how much access is enough. This whole notion of, teachers as sage on the stage as opposed to guides on the side, which is what COVID did, right? Students were more responsible for their own learning for the most part in the classroom because they had to access resources that perhaps the in-person teachers could not provide. So we've seen that transition as well. So I think for us, all technology has to be used, accessed, based on kind of the community that we are working with. And those three examples I gave you, it's just the reason I gave those examples is so that you can see varied situations in which the introduction and use of technology in some cases is good, is not so good, etc. But I think for us, the future of inclusion is not necessarily defined by how fast we innovate or even how fast we are able to access these devices, but indeed it's based on how widely, right, we share the benefits of this innovation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have 15 minutes left. So I'll give you the floor, Emin, but I also want to put out like the last two questions we had for the panel. One was about you know, just basically asking you to share a moment or an experience, you know, a moment that, you know, where you felt that instead of just playing catch up, you know, the work you're doing on digital innovation actually was changing a little something more than just playing catch up, right? You just digital inclusion was getting closer to a systemic change or pushing towards actually changing the conditions, underlying conditions that define inequity, right? And the second question was actually, you know, what would you give as an advice to the leaders of tomorrow, in a way, the children? I have two kids, one is 8, the other is 10, and you know, they're taking an interest in technology, and I genuinely think that the restraint with which they are discovering technology, in the sense that focus on other things, is a privilege, right? So what, you know, in a world where digital literacy is becoming part of citizenship, basically, what advice would you give to leaders of tomorrow to push forward the equity agenda? So pick one or two of these questions and please give your final round of comments. We have about 3 minutes each. Emin, would you like to start?
Yeah. Actually, first of all, I would like to comment, Essie. You know, today everyone sees digitalization as a competition, but it is not a competition. For example, yes, this school uses digital system and our school should use digital system as well. But no, first we should see the needs of our students. And as schools and education system is becoming digitalized, the gap between parents and students are also getting bigger and bigger. For example, I have a sister. She is 14 years old, and my parents are about 60 years old. If they want to learn about how she does with her subjects, they need to access to this digital system. Therefore, like they don't, after one time, they don't care about this because they tell, it is very difficult for us like to get this system and to know how is she doing. Therefore, now the parents can't monitor their students. And to answer to this gentleman's question, like I can tell, you know why? Because mobile users at the schools don't do good even if they use mobile gadgets. It is because like they don't know how to use. Actually, there should be something or some classes should teach the students how to use their mobile phones. Actually, maybe it should be in very early classes. I don't know if there is an experience of it, but in my country we don't have. Therefore, like really, students who take their mobile phones to their schools, they don't do really good because they just play games. They just on the social media. They do everything, and when parents ask them like, why you are taking your mobile phone to the school, they say everything is digitalized, therefore like we need to take our gadgets to the schools, but it is not the thing. I think there should be some kind of education. And my question, my answer to this question was that. And about your questions, I would like to tell that actually we should teach to our young generation how to use the technology, not what to use. Therefore, I think it is the main point of this discussion, for me at least. Therefore, in short, I would like to conclude my speech in that way.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Emin. Thank you very much. Who wants to go next? Yeah.
I'll go next.
Well, I want to make a comment, and then my final words would be about what I would say to children. But my comments are the following. Through the programs that we have and the conversation with different stakeholders, particularly school principals and teachers, we have found two main discussions. The first one is that we should not forget the mission of schooling. What is education for? And we have to go back to the basic, is to develop human capacities. That's the first thing. And we should do it thinking in education for peace, for citizenship, and even for global sustainability. These are the basics. Everything that works around that, it will be okay, including technology. So we should go back to the basics, and we cannot forget to develop foundational skills first, and also soft skills. And this is my second comment. When we work with communities, with parents, with entrepreneurs, to teach digital tools for whatever they want to use it, safely and also responsibly, we have found that it's necessary to include soft skills development. So we teach them communication skills, critical thinking, working in teams, and other skills that we didn't expect it, because we were thinking about just teaching the tools for their own well-being, but we found out that they learn better if they have confidence, if they trust in themselves, they learn to work together, they learn how to ask questions to their kids that know better the technology than them. So these things works out. So soft skills need to be encouraged and fostered also. And thinking about all what we have talked this morning about technology since the first plenary session, if I was able to speak to all children in my country about technology and the importance of digital literacy for the future, I will tell them the following, and I wrote it down, so I will read it for you. I will say to them, use it responsibly, wisely, be curious and creative. It is nice to have access to internet and tablets, computers, but if you want to be a true leader, you have to always ask why and how things work. Use technology to create positive content and share human values that empower others to take care of the planet and have sustainable societies. Think twice before you share something online, because once you post something, it will stay there. Stay human in a digital world. What makes us different from other species is that we think, feel, and have a deep need to connect with others. We should connect with people first. Life is in constant change. Technology evolves quickly. If you want to be a leader, you should keep learning every day. That should be your constant learning every day. Anticipate to potential changes, be open-minded, because life is not about being perfect, but to keep growing.
Thank you, Helga. So Njideka or Michael, who would like to? Yes, Njideka, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, sure. And I'll try to keep this quick. So just a few points. You know, I'm a mother of 3 daughters, right? And all 3, of course, grew up surrounded by technology. And someone like myself who, you know, digital inclusion and the lack thereof actually made me angry, which was what caused my obsession to found Youth for Technology Foundation. I often think about this balance between curiosity and restraint, between the screen and the world outside of it, right? So the first point is really learn with technology, not from it. The future classroom is not device-free, it's value-rich. Where technology really is amplifying curiosity, empathy, and problem solving. Digital natives, like my 3 daughters, must learn that technology, even artificial intelligence, is not a teacher in itself. It's really a partner in thinking. So AI, of course, can generate answers in seconds, but leadership actually comes from asking better questions. Because what will define my children's generation is not how well they use this technology, but how deeply they understand what makes us human. My second point is stay curious, but grounded in ethics. Like many of the other panelists have talked about, artificial intelligence is powerful. It learns from patterns, as we know, but it also mirrors our biases. So digital literacy today must include ethical literacy. My children and yours should be asking these questions. Who built this technology? Who might it exclude? And how can I use it to make life better for someone else? And then thirdly, build with empathy and not ego. We know that artificial intelligence and many of the other emerging technologies can and are automating efficiency, but they cannot automate compassion. They can't automate empathy. I often remind my 3 daughters and the young people that I mentor that leadership in a digital world often means using technology to solve problems, to create solutions in their local communities, to heal, to connect, and to include. And then finally, keep one foot in the physical world. Children like mine who grew up in this era also need what's called digital balance, the ability to disconnect, to think, and to create with their hands and their hearts. Imagination, like Michael said, starts outdoors. So rather than tech, give them a football, for instance. But imagination really starts in play and in wonder. Technology is an enabler, not a means necessarily to the end. We should remind, starting with our children and the world, that creativity in itself is not coded, it's cultivated. So as we think about, wrapping up this conference and the role that digital transformation plays, we should keep in mind that digital transformation is not digital if it's not deeply human, right? We move from measuring connectivity to cultivating capability.
Thank you very much for that, Njideka. Great, Michael, you have the last words.
Okay, so mine will not be too long. So first and foremost, I want to just remind you of who you are. When I say who you are, and especially those from the Global South. If you're from the Global South, we're 6.9 billion people. Never forget that. The power is with us. Do not let tools, technologies define our future. Never forget that. All these tools and all these technologies will just keep evolving and they'll keep becoming redundant. In another 2 years, there'll be something else to replace what you think is so great and so important at this point in time. So what you all must do, you must take a step back. You must do that which technology does not want you to do, which is you must put down those devices, put aside all those books, and do the one thing that they do not want you to do, and that is to think.
Thank you, Michael.
So think and write your story.
Write your story is a great ending, actually. So thanks everyone. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to try to summarize. You were here, so you should have taken good notes or at least recorded the session so you can transcribe it with AI and get the key bullet points. But I think it's interesting to see that, all we said basically is it points to the fact that to move from access to inclusion and beyond, we didn't get much time to talk about beyond inclusion. Really, we need to invest in things like education systems at all levels, formal and informal. We need to work on better job markets and how information flows. We need to work on state services, right? And we can invest in communities. So in a way, this shouldn't be too disappointing that we're going back to the basics, right? If you think about the word revolution, it actually comes from astronomy. And it's about doing one full round around the sun. So maybe in that full round, we're actually learning something. So if discussion on technology bring us back to the basics without distracting us from that, and instead advancing our discussion on the basics, I think it'll be a worthwhile round. Thank you very much, everyone.